A long time ago, in a kingdom beneath the sparkling sea called Coralden, a lively mermaid named Lena swam with a flick of her tail. The water shimmered blue and green around her home, a grand coral castle with towers twisting up like shells. Fish darted past, and seaweed swayed in the currents. Lena's father, King Torin, ruled with a stern hand, his silver trident gleaming as he sat on a throne of pearl. He loved his daughter, but his rules were firm. No mermaid could visit the land above. Lena didn't care for rules. She dreamed of land, of sand under her feet and wind in her hair. Every night she peeked at the surface, watching ships glide over the waves. Her friend Sid, a little red crab with a big voice, always grumbled. "Stay down here, Lena. Land's trouble." But Nell, a tiny yellow fish with wide eyes, giggled and swam closer. "It looks fun up there." One stormy day, the sea roared wild. Lena heard a crack above, a ship splitting apart. She darted up, bubbles trailing, and saw a sailor sinking fast. His dark hair floated around him, and his eyes were shut tight. She grabbed him, pulling hard against the waves, and hauled him to a sandy shore. He coughed, opened his eyes, brown and warm, and smiled. "Thanks," he said, voice rough. "I'm Gem." Lena smiled back, her heart skipping. "I'm Lena." Then she dove away, hiding under the water as he stared after her. Back in Coralden, Sid scuttled over. "What did you do? Torin'll be mad." Nell swam circles. "Was he nice?" Lena nodded. "Very nice. I want to see him again." Sid waved his claws. "No chance. Mermaids don't walk." But Lena's eyes sparkled. "Maybe they can." That night, she slipped away from the castle, swimming deep to a dark cave where shadows danced. Mara the sea witch lived there, her long hair black as ink, her grin wide and sly. "Well, well," Mara said, her voice smooth. "Lena, the king's girl. What do you want?" Lena swam closer. "Legs. I want to walk on land." Mara laughed, sharp and low. "Legs come with a price. Give me your tail, and you'll have 3 days. Find true love's kiss, or you're mine forever." Lena paused, then nodded. "Deal." Mara waved her hands, and a glow swirled around Lena. Her tail split, turning into legs, shaky new. She gasped, kicking up to the surface, the sea pushing her out. Sid and Nell followed, splashing behind. "You're crazy," Sid yelled. Nell squeaked. "Be careful." Lena stumbled onto the shore, wet sand cool under her feet. She stood, wobbly but grinning, and looked back at the waves. Gem was there, by a fire, fixing a net. He turned, saw her, and dropped it. "You?" he said, running over. "How'd you get here?" Lena smiled, silent. Her voice stayed in the sea with her tail. She pointed at the water, then at him. He laughed. "Rescued me, now you're stranded? Come on, I'll help." He led her to his hut, simple and warm with a straw roof. Back in Coralden, Torin noticed Lena gone. He roared, trident flashing. "Where's my daughter?" Sid swam up, claws clicking. "She's on land, sir. Made a deal with Mara." Torin's face darkened. Mara? That witch. Nell hid behind a rock. She wanted Gem. Torrens swam fast, calling guards with shells on their belts. Find her. Now. On the shore, Gem gave Lena a blanket. Rest here. She nodded, her heart racing. But under the sea, Mara grinned, her plan brewing, and the waves whispered trouble coming fast. The sun climbed high over the shore near Coralden, casting golden light on Gem's hut where Lena sat wrapped in a blanket. Her new legs wobbled under her, bare feet sinking into warm sand. She couldn't speak, her voice lost to Mara's deal, but her eyes sparkled as she watched Gem mend his net by the fire. He hummed a tune, his dark hair falling over his brown eyes, and smiled at her. You're a mystery, he said, tying a knot. No name, no words, just washed up like a gift. Lena pointed at herself, then the sea, hoping he'd guess. He laughed. Sea girl, huh? Stay as long as you like. Under the waves, Coralden churned with worry. King Torrens swam circles in the coral castle, his silver trident tight in his grip. His guards fanned out, shells clinking, searching every reef. Sid scuttled across the throne room floor, claws snapping. She's with that Gem, sir. On land. Nell darted behind a coral spire, her yellow fins fluttering. Mara took her tail. 3 days, she said. Torrens' face hardened. 3 days? To do what? Sid gulped. Find a kiss. True love. Or she's Mara's. Torrens slammed his trident down, cracking a pearl tile. That which won't have my daughter. Find her friends. Back on the shore, Gem stood, offering Lena a hand. Let's walk. You're shaky. She took it, her legs trembling but steadying with each step. They strolled along the beach, waves lapping at their feet. Gulls called overhead, and Lena grinned, feeling the wind she dreamed of. Gem pointed at a boat bobbing nearby. Mine. Sank in that storm. You pulled me out, didn't you? She nodded, her heart skipping, he remembered. He squeezed her hand. Lucky me. In the deep cave, Mara watched through a swirling pool, her black hair floating like seaweed. She smirked, tapping a claw on a shell. 2 days left, little mermaid. No voice, no kiss yet. She waved her hand, and the water bubbled, sending a shadow up, a eel long and slick with yellow eyes. Follow her, Mara said. Make sure she fails. The eel slithered out, cutting through the sea toward the shore. Sid and Nell swam fast, dodging kelp, heading for Lena. Sid muttered, Torrens mad. We're toast if she's caught. Nell squeaked, she's happy up there. They broke the surface near Gem's boat, spotting Lena laughing as Gem tossed a pebble into the waves. Sid waved a claw. Lena, trouble's coming. She didn't hear, her silent lips moving in a smile. Nell splashed. We've got to tell her. Gem led Lena back to the hut, setting out bread and fish. Dinner, he said, sitting close. She ate, her eyes locked on his, feeling warm inside. He leaned in, brushing her hair back. You're special, sea girl. Her heart raced. Could this be it? But a shadow flickered outside, and the eel slid onto the sand, its eyes glinting. It hissed, coiling near the door, and Lena froze, recognizing Mara's trick. Under the sea, Torin swam to the cave's edge, trident glowing. "Mara," he bellowed. She emerged, grinning wide. "Torin, dear king, missing something." He pointed his trident. "Give Lena her tail back." Mara laughed, sharp and cold. "She chose this. 3 days, or she's mine. Fair deal." Torin glared. "You'll pay for this." She waved him off. "Run along. She's busy failing." On the shore, the eel slithered closer, and Sid leapt from the water, pinching its tail. "Back off." Nell splashed, confusing it, and Lena grabbed a stick, jabbing it away. Jem jumped up, startled. "What's that?" The eel hissed, retreating to the sea, and Lena sighed, safe for now. Sid crawled onto the sand. "Lena, Mara's watching. 2 days left." She nodded, her face set, and Jem knelt beside her. "Friends of yours." She smiled, pointing at Sid, then Nell, then him, her team. The stars rose, and Lena sat by Jem, determined to win her kiss, while Mara's laughter echoed below, plotting her next move. The moon hung low over the shore near Coralden, its silver light spilling across the waves and Jem's little hut. Lena sat quietly beside him, her new legs tucked beneath her, toes brushing the cool sand. A blanket draped her shoulders, and her eyes followed the flicker of the fire he tended. Jem worked silently, fixing a torn sail with steady hands, his dark hair catching the glow. Every so often he glanced her way, a small smile tugging at his lips, as if her presence warmed him too. She couldn't speak, her voice locked away by Mara's deal, but her heart fluttered whenever he looked. Beneath the sea, Coralden hummed with unease. King Torin swam through the coral holes, his trident casting a faint shimmer across the walls. Shadows of guards darted past, their shells glinting as they searched. Sid scuttled along the sandy floor, his red claws clicking with worry, while Nell trailed behind, her yellow fins fluttering nervously. Torin's stern face tightened with every passing moment, his thoughts on Lena, lost to the land above. He paused by a pearl arch, gazing up where the water met the sky, and his grip on the trident grew firm. On the shore, the night settled in, and Jem set the sail aside. He stood, stretching, then offered Lena a hand. She took it, her legs trembling less now, and they wandered down the beach. Waves lapped gently at their feet, and the air carried a salty breeze she'd never felt so close. Jem tossed a shell into the water, watching it skip, and Lena clapped silently, her grin wide. He chuckled, a sound that made her chest light, and pointed to the stars. She followed his gaze, dreaming of staying here with him. Deep in her cave, Mara lounged among swaying kelp, her black hair drifting like shadows. A swirling pool glowed before her, showing Lena and Jem under the moon. Her sly grin widened as she traced a claw along the edge, pleased with the silence between them. She murmured to herself, her voice a ripple in the dark, and the pool bubbled again. Another eel slipped free, this one gray with sharp fins, and darted upward, its mission clear without words. Sid and Nell lingered near the shore, hidden in shallow water. Sid's claws tapped the sand, his worry bubbling up, while Nell peeked out, her eyes round. They watched Lena walk with Jem, her steps surer now, and Sid shook his head, muttering under his breath. Nell splashed a little wave, her fins quivering with hope. They tried to warn her, but the sea kept them apart, and the eel's shadow loomed closer unseen. In the hut, Jem pulled out a loaf of bread and a fish, setting them on a wooden plank. Lena sat across from him, nibbling quietly, her eyes locked on his. He leaned closer, brushing a strand of wet hair from her face, and her breath caught, a silent wish forming. The moment hovered tender and still, but a rustle broke it. The gray eel slithered in, fins slicing the air. Lena jumped, grabbing a broom, and Jem sprang up, bewildered. She swung, pushing it back, and Sid burst from the waves, pinching its tail. Nell flapped nearby, splashing water to help. The eel retreated, hissing, and Jem stared, puzzled. Lena pointed to Sid and Nell, then the sea, her hands quick. He nodded slowly, piecing it together, and knelt by the crab and fish. Sid waved a claw, his warning urgent but muffled by the waves' hum. Lena understood. 2 days gone, 1 left. Her face set with quiet resolve, and Jem squeezed her shoulder, a promise in his touch. Under the sea, Torin swam nearer Mara's cave, his trident's light cutting the dark. She met him at the entrance, her grin sly and unbothered. He demanded Lena's freedom, his voice a low rumble, but Mara brushed it off with a laugh, her words slippery. The deal stood, she hinted, and time ticked on. Torin turned back, determined, while Mara's eyes gleamed, her next trick stirring in the depths. The stars twinkled above, and Lena rested by Jem, her hope steady despite the shadows creeping closer. Dawn crept over the shore near Coralden, painting the waves with a rosy glow. Lena woke in Jem's hut, curled under the blanket, her new legs stretched out on the sandy floor. The fire had dwindled to embers, and Jem slept nearby, his dark hair tousled across a woven mat. She watched him quietly, her heart tugging with a warmth she couldn't name. 1 day remained. Mara's deal hung heavy, the kiss she needed so close yet silent without her voice. She rose, wobbling less now, and stepped outside, the sea breeze cool against her skin. Beneath the waves, Coralden stirred with urgency. King Torin swam through the coral castle, his silver trident casting flickers of light across the walls. Guards trailed him, their shells clinking softly as they moved. Sid darted ahead, his red claws tapping the seafloor, worry etched in his scurrying. Nell followed, her yellow fins fluttering fast, her wide eyes scanning the currents. Torin paused by a shell window, gazing up at the surface where Lena lingered, and his stern face softened briefly before hardening again with resolve. On the shore, Jem stirred awake, finding Lena by the water's edge. She stood barefoot, waves lapping at her toes, staring at the sea she'd left. He joined her, his hand brushing hers, and offered a quiet smile. Together they walked along the beach, the sun climbing higher. He picked up a flat stone, skipping it across the waves, and she clapped silently, her grin bright. The moment felt easy, like a promise growing, but a shadow rippled beneath the water, unseen. In her dark cave, Mara leaned over her swirling pool, her black hair swaying like tendrils. The gray eel coiled beside her, its sharp fins glinting as she murmured to it. Her sly grin widened, pleased with the day's dawn, Lena's last chance slipping away. She waved a hand, and the pool shimmered, sending a whisper through the sea. The water churned near the shore, and a wave rose, taller, faster, crashing over Lena and Jem with a sudden roar. Lena stumbled, soaked, and Jem caught her, laughing as water dripped from his hair. She laughed too, silent but joyful, clinging to his arm. Sid and Nell popped up from the foam, splashing ashore. Sid waved his claws, his worry bubbling up, while Nell circled Lena's feet, her fins trembling. The wave wasn't chance. Mara's hand guided it, testing them. Lena knelt, nodding to her friends, her face set with quiet strength. Jem watched, puzzled but trusting, and handed her a dry cloth from his pocket. Under the sea, Torin reached the cave's mouth again, his trident glowing bright. Mara drifted out, her grin sly and calm, meeting his stern glare. He pressed her to undo the deal, his voice a deep rumble through the water, but she brushed it off with a chuckle, her words slippery as eels. Time would claim Lena, she hinted, and swam back into the shadows. Torin lingered, his resolve sharpening. He wouldn't lose her. On the shore, Jem led Lena back to the hut, setting out a bowl of berries. They sat close, sharing the fruit, and he hummed a tune, soft and low. Her eyes locked on his, her chest tight with hope. He leaned in, brushing her hand, and the air stilled. Could this be it? But a shadow moved outside, swift and dark, Mara's eel again, joined by another green and sleek. They circled the hut, hissing low, and Lena tensed, her hope faltering. Sid scuttled out, snapping at the green eel, while Nell splashed the gray one away. Lena grabbed a broom, pushing them back, and Jem leapt up, wielding a stick. Together they drove the eels off, the sea swallowing them once more. Jem turned to her, breathless. "Your friends fight hard." She nodded, pointing to Sid, Nell, then him, her circle. He smiled, pulling her close, and her heart raced. One day left, and Mara's tricks grew bolder. In the cave, Mara's pool glowed, her laughter echoing as she watched the eels flee. "Close, little mermaid," she murmured, her next move brewing in the dark. The sun sank lower, and Lena clung to Jem, her silent wish burning bright amid the rising waves. The sun dipped low over the shore near Coralden, its golden rays fading into a soft dusk. Lena sat beside Jem outside his hut, her legs curled beneath her, the blanket loose around her shoulders. A small fire crackled, casting a warm glow over her silent face as she watched him whittle a piece of driftwood into a fish. His dark hair fell over his eyes, and he worked with a steady hand, a quiet tune humming from his lips. She leaned closer, her breath catching, her last day ticking away, the kiss she needed so near yet trapped by her voiceless curse. The sea whispered behind them, waves lapping gently, hiding the trouble brewing below. In Coralden, the coral castle shimmered with tension. King Torin swam through its holes, his silver trident clutched tight, its light flickering across the pearl floors. Guards hovered near, their shells glinting as they awaited his command. Sid darted ahead, his red claws tapping nervously, while Nell swam close, her yellow fins quivering with fear. Torin stopped by a wide shell window, gazing up at the darkening surface, his stern face etched with worry. Lena's time dwindled, he felt it in the water's restless hum, and his resolve hardened to bring her back. On the shore, Jem set the wooden fish in Lena's hands, his fingers brushing hers. She smiled, tracing its smooth curves, and he stood, pulling her up. They wandered to the water's edge, the tide cool against their feet. He tossed a pebble, watching it skip, and she clapped silently, her grin brightening the dusk. A gull soared above, its cry sharp, and Jem turned to her, his eyes warm. He stepped closer, his hand finding hers, and her heart leapt. Could this be the moment? The air stilled, tender and full, but a ripple broke the calm, dark and swift beneath the waves. In her cave, Mara lounged by her swirling pool, her black hair drifting as she watched Lena and Jem. Her sly grin twisted, pleased with the fading light, Lena's last day slipping into night. She murmured softly, her voice a ripple in the gloom, and waved a hand. The pool bubbled, and the water near the shore churned. A wave rose, sharp and sudden, crashing over them. Lena stumbled, soaked, and Jem caught her, laughing as water dripped from his face. She laughed too, silent but joyful, clinging to him. Sid and Nell burst from the foam, splashing onto the sand. Sid waved his claws, his worry spilling out in quick taps, while Nell circled Lena's ankles, her fins trembling. The wave wasn't chance, Mara's will shaped it, pushing time's edge. Lena knelt, her face set with quiet strength, and nodded to her friends. Jem watched, puzzled but steady, wiping wet hair from her eyes. He led her back to the hut, fetching a dry cloth, and they sat by the fire, closer now. He hummed again, softer, and she rested her head on his shoulder, hope flickering bright. Under the sea, Torin swam to Mara's cave once more, his trident's glow cutting the dark. She emerged, her grin sly and calm, meeting his stern gaze. He pressed her to free Lena, his voice a deep tremor through the water, but she brushed it off with a chuckle, her words slithering away. The deal held, she hinted, one kiss by midnight, or Lena was hers. Torin turned, his resolve unshaken, and swam back, calling his guards closer. On the shore, the fire dimmed, and Jem pulled Lena to her feet. They stepped outside, the moon high, stars twinkling above. He faced her, his hands gentle on her arms, and leaned in, their breath mingled, her wish so close. But a shadow surged from the sea, Mara rose, her hair whipping in the wind, her eyes glinting green. She waved a hand, and the eels returned gray and green, coiling around Lena's legs. Jem grabbed a stick, swinging hard, while Sid pinched and Nell splashed, driving them back. Mara laughed, her voice sharp in the night. Time's up, little mermaid. Lena shook free, clinging to Jem, her eyes wide with silent plea. He held her tight, his face fierce, and the sea roared, Mara's power swelling as midnight loomed. Midnight draped the shore near Coralden in silver, the moon casting a quiet glow over the waves. Lena stood tangled in Mara's grip, the sea witch's black hair swirling like shadows as her green eyes gleamed with triumph. The gray and green eels coiled tight around Lena's legs, their fins sharp against her skin. Jem held her arm, his stick raised, his dark hair damp with sea spray, his face set with fierce resolve. Sid scuttled nearby, his red claws snapping at the eels, while Nell darted through the shallows, her yellow fins flashing in the moonlight. The sea churned, waves crashing high, and Mara's laughter rippled through the night. Lena's last day had ended, her kiss unclaimed. Beneath the waves, Coralden trembled with urgency. King Torin swam swift through the coral holes, his silver trident glowing bright, guards trailing close with shells glinting. He'd left Mara's cave, his stern face carved with determination. Lena wouldn't be lost. The water pulsed with his will, currents swirling as he neared the surface, ready to face the witch once more. On the shore, Mara tightened her hold, her fingers cold on Lena's wrist. The eels hissed, pulling her toward the water, and Jem swung his stick, striking one loose. Sid leapt, pinching the grey eel's tail, and Nell splashed a wave, startling the green one back. Lena twisted free, stumbling into Jem, her breath quick and silent. He wrapped an arm around her, his warmth steady against the sea's chill, and faced Mara with a glare. The witch smirked, raising her hands, and the waves rose higher, a wall of water looming over them. Under the sea, Torin broke the surface, his trident shining like a star. The guards fanned out, their spears gleaming, and he thrust his weapon forward, a beam of light cutting through the dark. Mara turned, her grin faltering, and the wave paused, trembling in the air. Sid cheered with a claw wave, and Nell swam closer, her fins fluttering with hope. Torin's presence shifted the tide, his power clashed with Mara's, the sea caught between them. Lena clung to Jem, her eyes wide, feeling the pull of Mara's deal fading. Jem held her tighter, his breath warm on her cheek, and leaned in. His lips brushed hers, soft and sure, a kiss born of trust. The air stilled, the wave crashed back, and a glow spread from Lena, faint at first, then bright. Her legs shimmered, merging back into a tail, blue and strong, her voice returning with a gasp. "Jem," she cried, her words clear and joyful. Mara recoiled, her hands dropping, the eels slinking away. The glow flared, washing over her, and she shrank, her form twisting into a harmless shrimp, scuttling into the sea. Torin lowered his trident, the water calming, and swam to the shore, his stern face easing into relief. Lena turned to him, her tail flicking in the shallows, and he nodded, a quiet pride in his eyes. Sid scuttled over, clapping his claws, and Nell spun in circles, her giggles bubbling up. Jem stepped back, startled by her tale, but Lena took his hand, her smile warm. "I'm still me," she whispered, her voice soft and new. He grinned, squeezing her hand, and knelt by the water's edge. Torin watched, his trident resting, and lifted it once more. A gentle light flowed, granting Lena a gift. Her tail shimmered again, splitting into legs when she wished, then back to fins, a bridge between sea and shore. She laughed, standing beside Jem, then diving back with a splash. In Coralden, the coral castle glowed with peace, the guards returning to their posts. Mara's cave lay silent, her shrimp form darting among the kelp, her power gone. Sid and Nell swam beside Lena, their chatter filling the water, and Torin followed, his sternness softened by her joy. On the shore, Jem waited, his hut a beacon, and Lena surfaced often, her days split between sea and land. The stars shone bright, the waves hushed, and Lena's tale ended with love and harmony, her voice a song that tied two worlds together.